Hi, I'm Jennifer from Shabby Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable fabric tulips. They're so quick and easy. And you know, I love to give fresh flowers, but then of course, you know, they wilt and eventually die. So this is the great thing about giving a fabric bouquet is it'll live forever. So let me show you how easy this is. The tulips that we made behind me were made from these gorgeous fabrics, fossil fern from Benartex. Now we have, all of these are a different set of fat eighths, not fat quarters, but fat eighths, which is a 9 by 21 to 22 inch piece of fabric. And look at just the rainbow of colors is absolutely beautiful. We did ours in greens and purples, but of course if you love pink or maybe kind of that red, or even the yellow, there's such a beautiful array. There's two packs that you'll definitely want to consider for stems, and that's the rainforest set or the marsh set. We'll be working with the rainforest set today, and we also have some purples. So just know there is a beautiful complement of fabrics available on the website all the time. So, and that's just under the fossil fern. Of course, you can go into the fat quarter sets as well, and that's twice as much fabric in each pack. And there's another beautiful array of colors. So let's put that aside for now, and let me show you just how simple it is to make our fabric tulips. So the first thing you'll want to do is go to the Shabby Fabrics website. On the home page at the very bottom, there's a link that says free downloads. Go ahead and click that. You're looking for the fabric tulips, and you'll be printing out 2 pages. One is for the actual flower portion and the other one's for the stem. So once that's printed out, you'll go ahead and just cut that out on the line. For the leaf, you'll be cutting out, there's the front of the leaf and the back of the leaf. So you'll take your fat eighth, this is what the fat eighth looks like, and just fold it in half like this. And we'll be using that for both the stem and the leaf. Now, before I go ahead and put the template on for the leaf, let's just go ahead and cut out the actual stem. And that's a 2.5 inch by 10.5 inch piece. And when you cut that here, you'll be getting 2 stems, which is great. So if you're going to be making a bouquet, you'll be getting 2 stems out of this one fabric. You will get just 1 leaf, but you'll get 2 stems. So if you're only going to be making 1 flower, just put that extra piece aside. You'll need 1 2.5 by 10.5 inch piece for the stem. And then with the leaf template, you would of course just put this on here. You can trace this around with your friction pen, like here. The other thing I like to do sometimes, rather than hold the pattern, is I just like to pin it in place. That's always a great thing to do. So just freeze up your hands a little bit. Before I started doing a lot of quilting and DIY, I'd sometimes just put the pattern down and actually just cut. But on more than one occasion, I actually cut my template. Now in this case, it's not a big deal. You could always download it again, but when you've purchased a pattern, you know, and you've cut into it inadvertently, well, you kind of ruined the pattern. So that's why I like to, instead of just cutting with the scissors where I could potentially cut that paper, I like to go ahead and just trace around that with the friction pen. And then just obviously take the pattern away, pin it again, cut out, and I've done that ahead of time. I'll bring that out. Now, before I even go on to how to cut the flower, what you'll do to prepare the leaf, I'm going to show you, I don't know if you can see this here. We started sewing here, a 1/4 inch seam, came to the point, came back around and stopped, and then you'll simply turn that through. Now, one thing that you can do, which helps to reduce bulk, is you can just trim off that point. You can kind of just feather that through. Because you want a nice point on your, right here, you want that to be achieved. Well, sometimes the bulk of just where everything comes together precludes that. So if you trim a little bit away, you're more likely to get a better point on that. Let's go with the stem portion before we even get onto the flower. Here's what it's gonna look like. So you've got that long piece of fabric. You'll simply go right sides together. You could pin that, but you know, let's just put a couple pins in it. Every time, lesson from Jennifer, every time I'm tempted to skip the step of pinning, I regret that. I end up seam ripping instead, and I don't like seam ripping, or what some people call unsewing. It's not my favorite thing to do. I like to sew, not unsew. So just pin all the way down, and because you need to have one end open for stuffing, you'll simply sew a 1/4 inch along here, a 1/4 inch along the long side, turn that right side out, and then, let me just get this out of the way. Look how firm this is. You have to really stuff that full. And what I found works really well is the wooden spoons that I use for like mixing up things, or just the wooden spools with the long handle work great for really jamming down the stuffing. Now you could add a wire in there for even more stiffness, but this is pretty stiff right now, and this is just stuffing. And make sure you leave that opening closed. We kind of tucked the raw edges down, so when the flower portion is ready, it'll feed right into there. So that, let's put that aside for now. I'll go off camera eventually, and I'll just turn this leaf right side out, and then I'll show you how we attach it to the stem. But for now, let's go ahead and go to the flower. That's the fun part anyway, isn't it? So let's do that. Now, how you lay out your template for the flower portion is a little more specific. It really uses almost the entire fat eighth. So you've got your pattern pieces cut out. This is, of course, this portion out here, and then this is for the middle. And you'll need 2 of these. So I want you to take note. I want you to get a good shot of that. Well, let's just lay it out like that, because that's just like before. We flip it right sides together. Okay, but you can almost not tell what's the right side and the wrong side on this fabric, but that's the right side, this is the wrong side, and we just kind of got that in that corner, traced it around. Same story here, and then that. You go ahead and cut all that out, which we've done ahead of time. I'll bring that out. Okay, so you have 2 of those. Now I want you to, you probably can't see it really well, but what we did with this is we started stitching here, came all the way around a 1/4 inch and finished right here. And you're going to repeat that for the other ones. So they're going to look just like that, starting here, a 1/4 inch all the way around and ending right there. This whole upper portion will be open. With the actual center of the flower, we started here, stitched a 1/4 inch. At that point, make that pivot, come back down, stop, and of course, goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Whenever you stop for an area because you're going to be stuffing that, of course the center of the flower is stuffed, you always want to reinforce the stitches in the beginning and at the end, because as you stuff, those will tend to come unstitched if you don't lock those stitches in. So I will, I think we've got this done ahead of time. We did. Oh, my team is so good. They always get me all ready to go for these videos. I could not possibly do this without them. So thank you to the team at Shabby that helps us make all this video actually happen. We went ahead after we did that sewing. Remember how we sewed? And you're just going to go ahead and you're just going to turn that right side out. And you'll use a turning tool, which we have available on the website, and you'll just press that out, okay? So we've done that ahead of time. And when you turn the center out, you'll just simply stuff it. Just stuff it until it has a nice fullness like you would want it to be the center of a flower. Now, how this lays out is so neat. So you'll lay this out like this, okay? And now watch how I do this. Let me do it again. So you've got these notches, right? One set of notch goes right over the other. Turn, so they keep stacking on top of each other and stacked on top of each other once again. Now I'm going to go ahead and pin all of that. That's a lot of fabric right there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mark this so you're going to see it. You don't have to mark this because you're going to know what to do, but I want to show you where. You're going to start in a 1/4 inch and you're going to sew, and you are going to stay. Don't be tempted to go straight across because your flower is not going to have that nice curve right here. So you're truly going to be paralleling that edge, but then at the end you kind of just fade it out. You see how I drew that? How it just kind of fades out rather than just has an abrupt end. And again, that's just so the flower has a nice smooth transition. Same story here. starting in 1/4. You'll just paralleling, and you're going to go beyond this place, go past this place, and kind of just fade it out, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with the sewing machine and I'm going to sew that. And then I will turn that through. I'm just going to literally flip it. In fact, we'll do that step together. I won't turn it through. Let's do that together. When I come back, I'm going to have my leaf turned out. I'm going to have this stitched and we'll go to the next step together. I've got my leaf turned out and I've sewn those curves on the tulip, but I have not turned that quite yet. Now I wanted to mention while we were off camera, had a little bit of a struggle to turn the leaf through, and I used the turning tool that we have available on the website, and that just like boom, that made it so much easier and we got nice and pressed. On our leaf, I want to show you this. We went ahead and did a top stitch. It just looks cool, plus there's the vein. So I'm going to use my friction pen and I might just draw something interesting here and stitch that. Now if I don't like that, this is my favorite disappearing trick. You know this if you've watched any of my other videos. I didn't really like where I did that. I'm going to just iron that away and start again. That's the beauty of the friction pen. So don't be tempted to use a permanent marker unless you feel so confident that that's where you want that line. So I like to use the friction pen and I'm going to maybe draw it up like this. So I would take this to the sewing machine at this point, stitch maybe 1/8 of an inch inside the edge, and also go ahead and stitch that line. And I'm using the Masterpiece Superior Threads color 135 today. And that's why I like to have my color charts right in front of me. These are available as well. There's 75 beautiful colors. And I just like to have this as a reference in my sewing room. So when I do have live fabric and I'm trying to choose the best thread color, this is actual thread on here. I'm matching live fabric to live thread. And so I really can't make a bad choice because I'm seeing live color here. So I've picked a coordinating color and I would go ahead and stitch that and stitch the vein. Now just to save time, I won't do that on camera, but what we'll do at this point, remember how we've got this stuffed, okay? Let's just let that be right now. That's the opening, so make sure that's up on the top. And then looking at what we have here, you can decide, where you want that leaf to hit. We kind of liked how it kind of cupped behind the flower, but if you want that to be even more, you just position it wherever you want it to be. And now I'm just going to go ahead and tuck those ends up. And that can be part of when you do your top stitching on your leaf. You would just tuck those ends in and you would just catch that when you're stitching around the leaf. So that it doesn't have to be, it's kind of an all-inclusive step there, and that's a good reason right there to do that top stitch. So let's just tuck it in for now and know that you would just secure that with a stitch. But you'll have a needle and thread handy, and you can again use your color cards to choose the best color thread. And notice how I just kind of cup it around. So I've got a needle and thread knotted at one end, and I do have 2 strands here, just because I will be kind of tugging in there. Now I don't want my stitching to show through on the back side, so you'll just kind of get in there. This is what I call kind of just figure it out. There's some things are very clear cut how to accomplish, and other things you just kind of make it work. This is a make it work moment. I'm going to try to hide that stitching as best as I can. I've got 2 layers here, so I'm able to kind of put that thread in between those layers. You see how I'm just kind of working it through? You just make it work. I'll put in a couple more stitches here so you can see how. And the more coordinated your thread is, the less you have to disguise it. So we'll do that. And then you can, to tie it off, you can kind of just go right back down in there and kind of hide it in behind there. I think, see, one thing we could do, I guess it does kind of just always flop a little bit. The higher up you have that leaf, the more it's going to want to flop. I might even kind of run this needle up. This is absolutely on the fly right now. I'm just making this up with you as I go because I noticed that leaf kind of wants to flop back a little bit. I might run that thread up the back of that stem, just like I'm doing right now, and grab a little bit of that portion of that leaf. Let's see if this works well. We can kind of just run it through that stem. This is the part of crafting where you just make it work. That worked pretty well, because now it keeps that back. It keeps it from flopping down as much. And I can kind of just keep running that up the back and secure it that way. Now let me tie that off just because I want to get to the flower portion. We had sewn around the curves like I mentioned, and now we'll go ahead and turn that around, turn that through together. So let's just get to that step, because that's the fun part too. Let's turn that through. Again, if you feel you need to reduce some bulk, you can always trim some of that fabric away. And we need that portion to come through. There. And let's use that turning tool. Hey, I got that thing out for a reason, didn't I? It wasn't just to show you, but to now use it. Okay, so this is, there we go. It has some nice curves to it. The center portion we had stuffed. Now, we want to get that in there. That's going to take just a little bit of time to work that in there. You might want to go ahead using some thread and just wrap that around there so it's a little bit more oomph to hang on to. I might even add a little bit of stuffing in here, again, so it's a little bit more oomph to hang on to. Now I'm going to work off camera, I'm going to work this end down into there. I might even reach in there and try to grab it, and I'm going to nestle that down inside there. Now that I have the center of the tulip stuffed inside the outsides, it's a little awkward, so if you struggled with that, so did I. So we're all in this together. Let's take this to the sewing machine. Now that I know that center, I've given it a good tug. I don't want it to go anywhere. There it is. I don't want it to go anywhere when I'm attaching the flower to the actual stem. So I'm going to take all of this, it's going to be bulky, and my old featherweight here is hopefully can handle this. We will go ahead and sew right across the base of that. So we're going to catch everything together. Great. Then while you're at it, while you're at that sewing machine, just grab some of that bobbin thread or the top thread, whatever you're using. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Just grab a, I don't know, 18-inch piece of that. Let's trim those threads away. Then, so this is a pretty narrow opening for the stem. I want to make this circular so it'll go in here better, because right now it's kind of flattened out. So I'm going to just take that thread and I'm just going to begin to wrap it around so that it too becomes circular. Now I can go ahead, and I think you probably should trim off some of this, because otherwise it's not going to want to fit in that opening very well at all. So that's trimmed away. Have a needle and thread handy. This part is another one of those make it work moments where you're basically trying to fit this flower into that opening and then secure it. So you're just going to shove that down in there as best you can. This is not a fast process, and with needle and thread, I'm just going to come up from underneath here, hiding my knot. This is where you do want to have a nice coordinating thread, so you don't have to do too much disguising of hiding that thread. And you're just going to work your way around this, taking small stitches, and you might have to go around twice. You'll just keep working your way around until you're completely done. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make fabric tulips from Shabby Fabrics.